Hey, this is Maria from Nobody's Princess, and I'm in Australia where we ski upside down, and you're listening to Tim from Ski Rex Media.
That's right, from Australia where they ski upside down. How funny is that? When she first said it, it made me laugh, and it makes me laugh now. Hi, everybody. I am Tim from Ski Rex Media, welcoming you to another Ski Rex Media podcast, doing the intro with a jacked up voice still because I can't seem to get over this stuff. You know what? I'm going to try and get some sympathy from you. That's right. That's what I'm going to do right now. You see, some of these episodes, all of my episodes are pre-recorded, as we know. I record them way in advance, and then I release them on Wednesdays and Sundays. Now, this one was one of my first for this season. Might have been my first for this season, so it was well over a month ago. And even then, talking to Maria down there in Australia, I was not feeling great, and now I'm still jacked up. But, like I say, if I can get it done now, then I won't have to deal with it for the rest of the season. And then it'll just be a better season all around. Am I right? Who knows? Who knows if I'm right or wrong? It's actually probably a stupid thing to say. How do you do your sicknesses now like you have a choice? It's a dumb thing to say, but it makes me chuckle, and it's kind of awesome. And, you know, even then, though, we had a great conversation, even though I was under the weather. That's right. I'm whining. Okay, enough of that. It's not as funny as I think it is. So when Maria and I talked when she was down there in Australia, well, she's from Australia, so of course she was talking to me from Australia. We had a great episode. We got out a lot of information about her company, which was the goal, and then we're talking skiing and traveling and snowboarding and all of it. Really good episode, a lot of fun. I think you'll enjoy it. But before we enjoy this episode, and I'm sure you will, let's talk about Whaleback Mountain, my home mountain, Whaleback Mountain in Enfield, New Hampshire. So easy to get to, so wicked accessible. It practically sits on the interstate. If you're driving along on I-89 in New Hampshire through Enfield, you will see Whaleback Mountain hanging out there, and it's right off of exit 16 off of I-89. So easy to get to, so much fun to ski. Everything you could ever want. They have the natural stuff. They have the groomed stuff. They have your trees. They have your steeps. They have rental gear. They have people who can teach you how to do it. They have everything you could ever want in a mountain right there. All kinds of fun stuff in a small package. Great mountain. This season, brand new surface lift going in to get you everywhere you need to be on the mountain sooner. Easier, get you around pretty easy. It's going to be awesome. And also new for this season, Whaleback is a full Indy Pass partner. So if you are an Indy Pass holder, you have 2 days waiting for you at Whaleback Mountain. Head off the highway as you're driving by and check it out. Whaleback Mountain, ski it to believe it. And let's not forget that coming up in a few weeks is the Snowbound Expo. Once again this year, Ski Rex Media is partnering with the Snowbound Expo, the biggest snow sports expo for families, skiers, and riders, bringing incredible athletes and Olympians to share their stories and all the coolest brands together for you to shop. You'll see free entertainment for the family all weekend, including the Mega Indoor Slope, very cool. Skate to Ski with Rollerblade, very cool. Try Nordic skiing at the Cross Country Experience. Get selfies with folks. Get your swag. Enjoy the après ski, and so much more. The expo is happening from November 3rd through the 5th at the Boston Exhibition and Convention Center. Get discounted tickets for the Snowbound Expo using the code SkiRexMedia, all one word, and join me and so many others in Boston for the expo. I will see you down there. Now, as I said in the intro, I have talked to people from far away. The UK, shout out to our UK friends. I talked to Benjamin Alexander when he skied for Jamaica for the first time, and he was in Finland. And now I've gone even further. I've gone all the way around the world. And today we are talking to Maria Baker, who's down there in Australia. Dude, how you doing?
I'm not too bad. A bit warm, which is sad for this time of the year, but otherwise okay.
You see, that's very interesting because it's very warm here too in the great state of Vermont. We're getting a little mini heat wave
for that last little oomph, because it's been pretty mild this season. I mean, we've been flooding for 3 months, but that's okay. You know, we know how to swim. That's cool. So how is it down there? How is it down? And before we get into who you are, how's it looking down there? It's warm. Do you still have at least a little winter left? It's not quite over, right?
Look, I think, I don't know if you're familiar with the term when the fat lady sings, but the fat lady's starting to sing. So a lot of our resorts, so we've got 3 or 4 major ones in Melbourne, Victoria here, and one's already shut, and most of them have closed off most of the runs in the mountain. They're just doing the ones that they can easily push snow around to kind of keep the base up. But we're down to, like, you know, 3-foot bases. Like, no, wait, my metrics is all 30 centimeters. What's that? A foot. We're down to a foot of bases.
Yeah, it's about a foot. It's about a foot.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I can do the conversion, but it takes me a second. It's around a footish.
Today's about 21 degrees Celsius, so the sun's out, and, you know, as much as it's nice for a bit of warmth, it's a bit sad because really we should be getting another month, you know, normally. So,
burn.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of rough. Here in my part of the U.S., we had that problem. You know, our winter was there wasn't a lot of snow. There was a last big push at March. We got like a 3-foot hit, and someone else do the math on that for the metric folks. I'm sorry. I'm not feeling well today, everybody. Oh, my goodness.
Right. Yeah, we got a bit of an early season 2 here, and we got really excited, but then we've literally had no snow for over a month, and there is a little bit forecast actually for a fortnight, but everyone's sort of I think everyone's already a bit jaded and doesn't believe it's actually going to come. But the biggest issue comes down to staffing, and, you know, when the resorts start to shut, they send their staff home, and so even if that big snow does come through, no one's there to turn the lifts. So it's a backcountry paradise, but for the resort riders, it's all over.
That's a shame. Well, you know what? For as long as the staff can come up to the U.S., I've worked with several people from Australia and New Zealand in the ski industry who come up during our time of the year, and we had a lot of fun with them. And from South Africa as well, you know, because the hemisphere switch, everyone, you know how that works. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's cool. We're talking to someone in Australia at ground level, and that's going to be kind of awesome because I don't trust mainstream media anymore, including the weather media. I don't trust them either. Like, you have people down there that are jaded. I am too. I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll know how much snow we have when I look out the window. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
So we'll come back around to that because we're gonna see if we can sell some of your product here in the U.S. because I hadn't heard of it until now. Here's the beauty. This season on Ski Rex Media Podcast, there's going to be several people that are on because of the NASJA repost of a social media post I did. I said, hey, anybody got any ideas or anybody want to volunteer to be a Ski Rex Media Podcast guest? I says, whoever wants to. And then the wonderful folks at NASJA reposted that, and I started getting people. And I'm not 100% sure Maria come from that, but I think it was a roundabout way from that, or maybe that direct. I can't remember. So it worked out that she's here, and I had never heard of her until then, you know, and I don't mean that in a bad way, you know, to say I've heard of everything in Australia would be the most arrogant thing I've ever said. And I've said some arrogant stuff. Believe me, I used to be bad when I was a younger man. Most arrogant person I knew. So with that said, let's get into who you are and what you do. Go ahead. Right.
So yeah, I'm Maria Baker, and I run Nobody's Princess, which is a women's focused snow apparel brand. I myself am not a lifelong snow person. I actually only started about 7 years ago when I was 30. And I struggled finding gear. I struggled finding pants that fit because of my body shape. And, you know, I'm about a US size 10. So I think, you know, mid-size is the label. And I'm nearly 6 foot tall. So I struggled so much. And after a few years, you know, the opportunity came through COVID, amazingly, that I could start this business. And through Kickstarters and crowdfunding, it actually came into fruition. So I'm making size and shape and height inclusive snow gear, which started with pants, and next year is going to expand into bibs and jackets too.
Very interesting and very excellent. It's excellent that you got it going through crowdfunding. Wonderful, wonderful resource. Many people have put it to good use. Now, I did many years in retail before Ski-Rex Media became a thing. Excuse me. And so I get that women's clothes, like you say, a US size 10. Now, I'm not a woman. I don't shop for women. I don't shop for myself. I'm a t-shirt and jeans guy. So just send it to me and I'm good. But I do know from working in retail and whatnot that one company's size 10 is another company's size 9, is another company's size 12. It's an odd thing in women's apparel that I don't understand the sizing system. I don't claim to. I always looked at it, I was like, this is dumb. I need 32, 4, 6, 8. Why can't women just do 32, 6, 4, 8?
Oh, it would be so much more easier. But I think there's always this, stigma about the number you wear, which is really horrible. Media has criticized women that don't wear a size 0 or size 2. And, it plays on you. So I think companies do try and sort of skew it. But it's funny because I think for all my experience, it goes the wrong way. You usually have to buy bigger than what you really are, not smaller. I feel like if companies were smart, they'd be making a size 2 a size 0 and making a size 10 a size 8. And, just to really the other way around, just to really oomph up your ego and your confidence. But yeah, it's all over the shop. And that's especially true through the snow apparel, worldwide. I think it's even worse for snow and ski gear, especially for women. They're having to buy 2-3 sizes up because of their body shapes and what they need to fit. And yeah, it's insane. I find it insane.
It is very odd. And it is something, again, I am a fashion victim. I know nothing. And that's not just from fashion. I want to look good. That's from practical fashion. I don't know anything. I'm wearing a t-shirt that's 20 years old, literally.
Yeah, but you still like that t-shirt because it fits you well, right? That's why you keep wearing it. And that's
I do.
Issue.
And I'm
lazy. It's not always about fashion. It's just about good fit.
And that's the thing, though. Good fit. And that's what I was getting into, because I've heard this before, not just in retail. Again, that's a whole other thing. If someone wants to talk retail, I can do that. I was in the business for years and years and years. I come over to back into the ski industry, and, I'm talking to women who are like, I'm not trying to be an uber feminist. I was like, well, you don't have to, because you're not. What are you saying to me? I says to them, it's just jokes. And but they're like, no, for real though, a woman's body has, is built different.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not just the pants, it's base layer tops, it's undergarments, it's
it's
jackets, the whole thing. Yeah, if you measure me in the upper body, it's going to come out someone completely different. Even if I can look a woman dead in the eyes, I'm almost 6 foot tall, about 1.82 meters for you metric folks. See, I know that one. Yeah, but I'm about that tall, and which means Marie and I can almost look each other in the eye. We're very close. But you measure her up and you measure me up, you're going to get two completely different things. I don't care if you use standard or not standard, imperial, metric, whatever it is.
Exactly.
But you found a way to solve you're trying to solve the issue in your own way, and you're making money doing it.
I've got a pretty good, I don't know if I'm doing the making money part yet, but I'm doing a pretty decent job of solving it so far. Yeah, it's a learning and a growing experience, that's for sure.
Excellent. So what's the process? Do you just look at yourself in the mirror, get out the sketchbook and the tape, the measuring tape, or did you talk to people? Did you research? Did you do all this stuff?
All of that. So I think from the time that I officially launched with a website and an Instagram to just start getting the name out there to actually having a product on shelf was nearly 3 years. It was a big process. And there was a lot of research. So I think obviously the frustration started with me because I couldn't find stuff, and I'd find the pants and they'd fit my hips and I'd have the huge waist gap and they were 3 inches too short. And so I looked like a toddler who'd outgrown their clothes with my snowboard boots on and all those sorts of things. And I ripped heaps of my pants through the crotch because the tights were too hip. The hips were too tight. The tights were too hip. The tights were way too hip.
Wicked hip.
I'd bend over, do up my bindings and gone. And I did 3 pairs. And I think because I'd talked to my friends about it, even the ones that were smaller than me, the ones that were a size 6 or a size 4, they actually still had the same problems. Like it wasn't just a size thing, it was a shape and a fit thing.
Totally.
So yeah, I did a ton of research. I was working in travel during COVID and I got stood down because travel obviously came to a halt. And so I did a ton of researching. I did a lot of networking. I talked to different designers and like technical apparel designers. And I did huge surveys. Like there's a really big community in Australia, and I think it actually extends into the US a bit, called Miss Know-It-All. And it's a Facebook community group who's just huge, like, 90,000 members. And then there's another female centric one that's like 40,000 members. And Rachel was lucky enough to let me put the surveying on her Facebook groups, and get all this data and this info. And I asked all the questions. I said, what pants do you have that are good and why do you like them? And, if you do struggle with your pants, where are you struggling? And, if you rip your pants, where are you ripping them? And what do you want to see more in pants? And what do you want to do? And it was all those things, right? And I actually asked people for their measurements too. I said, what size do you identify as? What size do you think you are? And what are all your measurements? What, if you're comfortable with, it's your belly button and your hip and your bum and your thigh and your knee. And I got all this data. I got so much data. And then pairing that with some of the stuff that's available online too, sort of started working on grading and change, what are these sizes going to look like? And so something I'm really proud to say, and obviously it's going to be more skewed towards Australian sizes, is that the gear I'm making is really true to size. I don't think there's been many instances at all where I haven't gone, hey, what size pants do you wear? Not ski gear, but just normal pants.
Sure.
Grab them that size and they've put them on and it's great. So yeah, I did a lot of research, hours and hours, and I joined every Facebook community and Reddit thread you could think of and forum, and just drilled for info because I just wanted to take every frustration that was around and squash it. I just wanted these to be the best pants ever.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. That's perfect. That's exactly what you should do. And that's what I was going to get into. If you said, no, I didn't do any research, I'll be like, all right, then what are you doing? But the research there, and again, granted, I am Tim from Ski Rex Media. We talk skiing, snowboarding, snow sports, but as I said, I have a retail background, so that all interests me too. All the research, all the data, all the manufacturing and logistics and what all that stuff. That was my thing, logistics. That's my thing. So
yeah,
all that interests me.
I think my background, I'm always I've always been a problem solver. That's been my biggest thing. So I think the perk was that there were so many brands on the market already, and I could see that they were just doing the same thing over and over and over again, and how they were doing their pants. So I'm like, right, I'd say stubborn. Everyone calls me tenacious to be nice, but the stubborn part of me went, right, I've got to do this again, but differently. I've got to do it differently because otherwise it's just going to be the same thing again. And I think that's what sort of sets them apart too.
And see, that's very interesting too, because you would think you have these larger manufacturers, worldwide, well-known manufacturers they should have all the data in the world already. They have all the research and development money, minds, equipment that you need. It should have been done. We shouldn't be having this conversation, you and I.
No.
Because this should never have happened, right? I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not. And the thing is, they've kind of tried, but I think they just don't listen. They think it's too much of a minority group, but it's not. The numbers are there.
They are. And the thing is, it's like I say to everybody, well, at least in the US, people talk about snow sports in the US. And I'm like, yeah, for us on a weekend, traffic's backed up for 45 minutes and there's lines and whatever. But on a grander scale, snow sports aren't popular.
No.
But we are out here. And I hope that the companies that live and die by snow sports understand that too. So you got this done, and I like the way you did your research. You did it yourself. The problem, I think, with corporate research is that it is done through focus groups. It is done with generic, wide survey, and these things can give you good general idea. I mean, general ideas, but you went more specific by going to people, talking to people, lots of people. 3 years.
It was the women that were crying for it. It was the ones that were already struggling and the ones that weren't too. It was a mixed bag, but I think even when you do a focus group, you can still very much nitpick where your results are coming from. It's
Totally.
it's a mixture, but it's a selected mixture, you know.
It really is. There is a lot of you can stack the deck. Even if you don't mean to, you kind of do.
Correct.
So that kind of stinks. So you went and you did your research. You got everything made. You're now getting into manufacturing and testing. So now manufacturing, did that happen small? Did that happen large? That's a quick question.
That's where the Kickstarter sort of came in, because it would have been small, but because I bootstrapped everything, and really the Kickstarter was is this actually wanted? Is this worth it? Because of that, I think my first run for my first season was about 800 pairs of pants. And that was basically all the Kickstarter pre-sales. A few retailers in Australia here had sort of noticed what I was doing. And there was a couple that went like, yeah, this is smart. We want in. So it wasn't massive orders, obviously, but it was still enough, you know, to get them in like, you know, a couple of stores straight away. And then the rest I sort of kept as my own little bit of stock to try and sell through the year. So it was pretty substantial, but it was backed by these women, and it wasn't just in Australia, it was worldwide. So I had heaps of orders that went to the US and Canada. I had a whole bunch that went to Europe. I even had some going to like Singapore and Hong Kong. And I think the most obscure one for me was like one went to Turkey as well. And I was like, okay, like there's obviously some snow somewhere there maybe, or they go, you know, to Europe, somewhere else in Europe. So yeah, the manufacturing was kind of big in a sense because there was so much support for it. You know, these women were willing to put their money where their mouths were because they're like, we're so sick of this, which I thought was insane. Like, yeah.
Hey, like that's awesome. I'm sure it felt good on many levels. Not only did you succeed in your goal, but you started to solve an issue, and then it's like, holy smokes, I did it, me. Not to say pride, like I'm not a big fan of pride myself, but something like that, being happy about yourself, being confident. I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're totally right. And it's funny because I don't sort of celebrate that stuff enough because my main goal has always just been like for everyone else. And the running commentary through the whole like startup process was like, look, if this fails, at least I'm going to get a prototype of pants that fits me, and that's cool.
Nice.
Hey, but like, yeah,
I like it.
It's always been like, it's funny because I started this idea of making these pants, and it wasn't never a like, oh, this is a valuable business idea. This is going to be great. It was like, oh my God, I'm going to change people's lives. Like and that's sort of what it's done. So yeah, I was proud. I think it was a lot of hard work. And when you're working so hard and putting so much energy into it, you know, you kind of forget to celebrate those wins. But yeah, you're right. It was pretty cool standing back after the fact and going like, yeah, holy crap. Like I'm doing it. I'm making life better for people. Like, yeah.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. That is so cool. Now, so how did they turn out? I mean, you know, you did the sales, and that's great. Now comes the next part, which is how did they work out? So I'm sure, like, did you personally test any before you started filling orders? Like you had them made up, you put them on, you went out, did the whole thing, right?
So before I even did the Kickstarter, I did a few rounds of like the prototyping over like the winter here. So, you know, the first few pairs I didn't even have to take out because the fits weren't right and all that kind of stuff, and grabbed every friend and family member I could to like make them try them on and, you know, just get them on as many bodies as possible. And then I think once I had a few, that's when I started the Kickstarter and kind of got the funding. And then I sort of did the finishing touches with the supporters, right, with the backers. So that was cool. Yeah. And, you know, took them out and made sure they, you know, held up. And I think I got a bit lucky in that the technical designer I was working with had some really good connections to a manufacturer that has done a lot of other like big brand gear. So the quality was really good straight off the bat. And I've had so many comments on that, which is really nice. But in terms of the fit, like, so that first round, that first style of pants I did was made more for like smaller waists, bigger bums, bigger thighs, bigger hips. So the ones that tend to get a lot of the waist gap in their pants and will have to size up just to make it fit their bum. And so for those women, they like, you know, like, it was really great. I don't know, luck or hard work, because a lot of people argue on that, but they came out good. They,
Nice.
there wasn't huge flaws. There wasn't like, oh shit, we should have thought about this and that. Like, I think because I spent so long thinking about what was missing and what didn't work, and working to get these new sort of, ways of constructing a pant, or, putting in new features, they just worked, and it was good, and the feedback was amazing. And so the biggest thing that did like sort of need, or, become apparent was that, right, those pants work well for those women. Mm-hmm. Then the women with the other, or people with the other body shapes didn't quite get the rave on like, why are these so good? Like, they're still comfier. So like those women that were more straight up and down, or maybe had bigger tummies or stuff like that, they were like, okay, I can see they're comfy, they're well made, like all the features in them are good, but the fit's not quite there for us. So that's when kind of went back, right, there needs to be a second style for a different type of body shape. We're all not the same. So yeah, I had a few little bits like, with the waistband, like I had only put like, there was a lot of things on the waistband, but, only one hook. So then I changed it to a double hook for a bit more secure, and, found the pockets on some of them weren't quite as like, sturdy as I would like. So changed the fabric on the next round. So there were these little things, but in terms of like major, like, oh shit, we screwed up, got to go back to the drawing board, that didn't happen. Like, thank goodness, because
nice,
I suppose I had a good person helping me. But yeah, I was really fortunate, I suppose, that they came out and they were amazing. They were really Excellent. They were everything I was promising. So yeah,
very good. And that's awesome. Now, so you got the fit down, that was great. How about the tech side of it? Like, they're definitely dry, they're definitely warm, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so like, that was the thing. Like, I think there's a big discrepancy between women's and men's gear, and it's getting better, absolutely, between like the features and the tech in the pants. So like, I know here in Australia, and it's probably got to do with our conditions too, right? We really struggle to find a woman's pant that's over 10K. Like, it's just not really a thing, unless you then go into like more high end, like, your Burton AKs or your Helly Hansons and stuff like that. Unless you jump that huge price point, you don't get a good pant here. So straight away I was like, cool, they're going to be 15K, because whether you're here in Australia and it's a bit radier, you're doing a PAL day overseas, that's what I want them to be. And so they are 15K, and they're insulated and they're vented and they've got like 8 pockets on them. And so all those tech features I just put in straight away, because I thought, we deserve them, and they shouldn't be like high end add-ons. They shouldn't be like, oh, only if you're a serious, skier, if you're doing blacks and stuff. It's the mums going out with their kids. They deserve to stay dry, and they deserve to, be able to utilize them just like everyone else. So yeah, I put all that in from the get-go. I made sure they were a high featured, a high tech pant. Yes, they're not a backcountry pant, and they're not an AK Gore-Tex pant, but
that's okay.
For what they are and what I'm aiming to solve, they're up there,
Yeah, and I mean, that's just good business sense, though, because the majority snow sports enthusiast is inbounds resort rider.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fairly sure that's accurate. I mean, if I'm wrong, someone tell me I'm wrong. That's okay. But I'm fairly sure I know more personally inbound riders than outbound. And I don't feel like I'm good enough to go outbound, so I don't do it. But one of these days, maybe. Anyway, that doesn't matter.
This is why I snowboard. I don't like hiking.
There you go. Except when you hit the flats. I know people still have trouble. They hit a flat and it's like, oh. I was like, gotta be bombing, man.
You got to have a skier friend. You've always got to have a skier friend to tow you. That's the way you do it.
That's how you do it. I've done it a few times myself, but then I also have those snowboarder friends who are bombing so fast. They don't even see the flat. They're just gone. No, I'm like, all right, I'll see you at the bottom, kids. That's fine. That's fine. Awesome. So you got everything. And again, from a business standpoint, you're selling worldwide. And I was saying to Maria, I made a remark about the world getting smaller since the advent of the internet. So she's not just selling in Australia or New Zealand or Oceania down there. It's all over the place. Like, you go to her website and you flip through you could select your currency, and there's countries here. I don't even know if it snows. So you got everybody in mind. Like
Absolutely.
it's awesome and it's good. And again, I say it doesn't snow there. Well, no kidding, but of course they're going to go somewhere where it snows. Like that's what people do. If you don't have snow, you go get it. That's what you do.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
That's excellent.
And you can't say that, it doesn't snow, but I've had people buy them to go camping, and I've had people buy them to go to their trips to like Antarctica. So just that it's going to be cold. And, I think somebody was wearing them just hiking in New Zealand the other day. I saw on social media. So like, yeah, it's cool that it's solving more than just one problem or one use. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's awesome too. Like you're now hitting other markets without even trying. Like I think you got something here. If you could hit markets without trying, then you've got it. Like that's going to be awesome. Excellent. Going to Antarctica, not something I know people have done it, but you rolled it off the tongue so like it's an everyday thing there, but you're closer than we are. So I guess that makes sense.
Yes. We still have to fly. We've got to go to Argentina to get on the boat. So, like.
Oh, is that a thing? I didn't know that.
So, you don't go from here. You usually have to go into into Argentina, which is usually still a flight through to US, right? Like to LAX or something. And then you come back down and but geographically very close, but
yeah. See, and again, it's a learning experience for me. The assumption is you could take a plane, be there in a half hour, whatever it actually is. I don't know, but it's like now you got to come all the way over here.
Yeah. During COVID, before international travel opened up again, one of the airlines here, Qantas, actually did a 7-hour Antarctic flight. So you didn't land, but you went out. They flew over Antarctica low enough that you could see things, and then came back to Australia. And it was really cool because it was the closest you could get to international travel before the borders opened up.
Oh, that's wicked awesome. I'd never even heard about that.
Yeah, they only did like one or two. It was pretty amazing, and you were pretty lucky to get on one. But it was pretty cool.
Hey, even so, shout out to Qantas, man. They've had one of the best safety records in history. They know their business. I don't like to fly, so shout out to them, whatever. Doesn't matter. So that's cool. And you're getting into other markets. That's great. Have you thought about trying to do something specific for that? Like, all right, people are using my stuff to hike, but if I tweak this a little bit, it would be better for that. Is that something that you'd like to do down the line or?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, obviously I think the natural progression is like, if I can get like the bibs and the jackets going and they're good, then I'd love to do like, proper backcountry gear and like look into the Gore-Tex stuff or look into the, the higher waterproof and the shell stuff. But funnily enough, like before I even got my like foot off the ground, like I had women messaging me like, do you do horse riding gear? Do you do motorbike gear? Do you do like mountain biking gear? Do you do like tradies? Like, do you do work gear? Because like it was so apparent that there are so many other industries that are still lacking like well-fitting and like, inclusive gear. There's only like one other brand who's actually out of the US called Alpine Parrot who does hiking gear. And it's funny, coincidentally, I'd never heard of her before I started, but we do something very similar in that we do different body shaped pants. So different ranges of pants for different body shapes. And I think she's the only person I know that's doing something else along the same lines. But otherwise, there's still so many industries like absolutely crying out, like women are crying out for like better gear. So who knows, one day like might do everything. But for now, it's the snow stuff that I love and that I'm concentrating on.
I mean, if they're coming to you, that's supply and demand, my friends. That's the definition of capitalism. And Ski Rex Media, full supporter of capitalism. Take that how you will. I love capitalism.
It totally is. But I think, like, for me, like, I have a passion behind this, right? Like I said, when I started it, it was never like, boom, business idea, boom. Like somebody asked me the other day, like, oh, have you always been an entrepreneur? And I'm like, no, God, no. Like, it never even... Like, I used to always have, like, fancy free thoughts of, like, oh, I should open a cafe, or could you imagine this kind of shop here, or, what kind of business we need, but never really did it. And I suppose because this one affected me personally, I kind of took it personally. So, yeah, like, as much as there is so much out there, like, if I can keep doing this and, make a life out of it where I'm comfortable and help all these other women, because I've known the struggles myself and I've been, like, severely overweight as a teenager. So I get how much it can hurt. Like, if I can just fix those things, and I don't want to be big. I don't want to be massive. I don't want to like take over the world in the snow industry. I just want to,
Sure.
you know, I want to give those like women who can't go on the ski trips or go on a snow holiday because they can't find a pair of pants to fit. I want to give them that opportunity. I don't want them to have to miss out on their trip or not go out and play in the snow with their kids, or like, you know, cancel everything full stop because of a pair of pants. Like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about. Like, yeah, capitalism is great, but nah, I'm more about the passion behind it, and, you know, making people feel a way that I hope I never have to feel again. So
absolutely. And that's a great bit of core ideology. Like, yes, there's slobs like me who will, you know, love it. And again, joking aside, you know, it is the interest in the whole retail industry. You know, it's actually a lot of fun. A lot of people say, oh, dude, that job sucks. I was like, yeah, it can, but there's a lot of cool stuff in it too. So
it can be really rewarding too.
It can be. So we shoot to the website over here, nobodiesprincess.com.au. You have the pants, that's your like flagship, other apparel, some accessories, different things, stickers and things like this. So you got a whole full featured website and online store. Yes. And then you are doing, I think, and pardon me, I know I need new glasses. I can't see anything I'm doing. But I think I saw that you had locally in brick and mortar shops, correct?
Yes. So like in America, there's a snow industry association here in Australia too. It's also called SIA.
Sure.
And last year I went to my first trade show, which was very daunting when you've got this little, you know, 10-foot square stand next to the likes of, you know, Burton and Oakley and all them. And you're like,
sure,
oh, I'm just in my corner here. But it was really good because, like, you know, I suppose in a way Australia is so small population wise, which means our snow industry is so small and it's a really tight knit community. So, unbeknownst to me, people had been waiting to come and see me. And so, you know, this year, like, I've been able to really coolly say that over like Australia and New Zealand, there's like 30 stores now that retail the pants, and even one in Japan as of the 23-24 winter that's coming up. So that's like super exciting. So yeah, it's really, really cool that these little, they're not all little businesses. Some like much bigger stores too have gotten behind and seen the value, you know, and it's smart business sense for them because, like, you know, it's funny. One of the best conversations I had at that trade show was with a guy who had been running his store in on the outskirts of Sydney for, you know, 30, 40 years. And now he was passing down to his son. And, you know, there's this guy, you know, white guy in his 60s. And he was saying to me, like, how much heartbreak he used to have, or he still has, turning women away because it was like, no, sorry, we don't have something for you. Have you tried the men's gear? And even he had compassion and empathy and understanding about what these women were going through. And like, for me, that was like a really beautiful thing. But yeah, for them, I suppose it's smart because, you know, if they've got the pants and they're going to fit anyone that walks in the door, then it's, you know, good business for them too. But, you know, like I said, it was still just, there is like some soul in it too. So that was, yeah, it's really cool. Really, really cool to have those stores on board.
That is cool. And that's actually what I was getting at. I see the picture in your media section on your website with the booth, you know, and I've seen this many times myself. You get again this year at Snowbound in Boston, the Snowbound Expo, for those who will be in the US on the first weekend in November. Same idea, trade show basically, and it's an exposition, you know, whatever. So you do have, and again, I'm sure it's similar. You have all the mountains that want to come and they have their booths set up, and the bigger the mountain, the crazier the setup, you know, they got all kinds of stuff. And then you got your retail brands, and, you know, you got, you know, like you said, Burton, you know, which is right up the road from me. And you got Oakley, and you got all these, you know, companies from around the world, but then you have the smaller people too. And that's a lot of fun. Shout out to longtime friend and fan, Jumpin' Steve out here in New Hampshire, who runs Peace and Pow. I met him at one of these shows, so I'm sure it's the same idea, because he told me some of the numbers he did and how popular he was, standing next to another one that he got their numbers. And he actually did better than the big guy. And I'm not going to say who it was, but I laughed. I was like, really? That's amazing. And now you have that same opportunity, especially since you have, some people would say in business, it's too targeted. You're too targeted. I'm like, but there's no one else shooting for that target. Nobody.
Exactly.
Someone needed to do it, and you did it. And that's awesome. And you're not only on the internet selling on an online, you're doing the old e-commerce thing. You're on the ground, you're in the stores, you're in Japan. They have a huge snow sports following over there.
They do.
But part of their country has snow deeper than a house.
Yeah.
So that's great. If it could sell there, and the next stop, is just Europe and North America, for open retail. Obviously, like you said, you've already had sales in these countries, just in a different way, which is great, dude. That is so awesome. Everybody, like I said, nobody's princess now on when you put it in your ULR bar, you don't need the apostrophe there. It's just nobodiesprincess.com.au. Links will be in the description. You go there, very easy site to navigate. Again, you could pick your currency. Right now mine automatically switched to US, which makes sense because I'm in the US. Very cool. A lot of photos, definitely a love for snow sports. Now, you said you've only been in it for 7 years. You got into it as an adult, snow sports. What was that like?
So it was completely like, if you had asked me even like 3 weeks before I did it, if I was going to be doing it, the answer would have been no. So I actually grew up in South Australia, which is sort of more inland. It's the hottest, I think it's like the driest state in our country, driest state, driest country, driest continent.
Sure.
So I didn't even know we had snow in Australia till like my mid-20s, like how, silly. But moved to Melbourne, about 8 years ago, and, made some friends, and I am a beach bum. I love the heat. And they kind of said, we go snowboarding. We've been doing it for about 3 years. Do you want to come one weekend? And I'm like, I like trying anything. I'm fairly active. Like, I like doing different sports and stuff. And so I went up a second weekend, and I bought a snowboard that second weekend.
Very nice.
That's how it started. There was never an intention and interest. Like, I didn't even know much about the resorts here. And it just, I don't know, something about it. I tell people I must like water in any form, whether it be, wet or frozen. Wet or frozen? Liquid or frozen,
man.
Started at 30, or nearly 31, actually. I reckon it was a few weeks before I turned 31. And just, I don't know. I think just being outdoors is always a nice thing. I love being outside, and, it was something new. And like I said, I think it's a bit of a lazy man sport, and I take the piss a bit. It's not, but you strap, everyone goes like, oh, you must be so athletic, and I'm like, mate, I catch a ride to the top of the mountain, and I strap my feet into a plank of wood, and then let gravity do its thing. Like, But started late. This is like my 8th year snowboarding,
nice.
And even started chasing winters a bit.
Nice.
I visited Canada for the first time, and it was meant to be actually just a normal holiday. And I kind of said to my partner, I'm like, what if we popped into Banff for like 4 or 5 days, just, as we're moving from west to east. And, and then, that became look, the flight to Canada also stops over in Japan. Like, maybe we should just stay in Japan for a week and head to a resort for a couple of days. And so then, and I actually took a bit of a sabbatical from my corporate career before I started this business, and worked a season in Japan at a resort called Madarao, which is just outside of Tokyo. And so really, I think for the last 3-4 years, there hasn't been, I've kind of done double winters, and not that I've been there for the whole 3, 4, 5 months of a season, but I've made an effort to go get some snow in our summer, basically. So it's just kind of consumed my life. And I think it's the outdoors, it's the mountains, but it's also the community. Like, the people who get around the snow, I think, are just some of the best people I've I've ever met. And that kind of, makes it even more appealing.
Absolutely. That's what we like to hear. And that's something I like to bring up, just as a side note. Some people are like, well, these people are making stuff for this industry. Are they actually part of it? And yes, you are. You ride, and you've been to other countries, which I haven't even done. I've been to Canada, but I never skied in Canada.
You gotta do it.
And one of these days I will. Here's the problem I find with being a travel skier. Now, I use the Indy Pass, and I know that's just the US and Japan and Canada, and that's great. But where I live, I have so many places within an hour, and then if you get out to 3 hours drive, to try them all is just so much work, but it's a lot of fun. And, like you said, you got to go into the Canadian Rockies, hit Japan, a lot of fun at these places. So she's legit. Everyone, she knows, she's a true knuckle.
It's official.
I say she's a true knuckle dragon snowboarder, and we love snowboarders here. That's a lot of fun. Some of my best friends, my best friend is a snowboarder.
I can ski too, just for all the people hating on the snowboarders. I also can ski. I go both.
I don't. I tell this story all the time. I can't get it. I can't get the hang of snowboarding, and I'm too old to try. Now, the interesting thing, speaking of which, joking aside, is as an adult, I always find that amazing when someone gets into it, because as a person gets older, for whatever reason, we don't try as many things, or we're afraid, even if we've done it. Like I stepped on a skateboard, and I've never been a trick guy. Like, I can't do tricks on a bicycle. I don't do tricks on my skis. I don't do tricks on a skateboard, but I ride them. And I stepped as an older adult, like in my 30s, I stepped on a skateboard, and I was wobbly. I was scared, and I didn't do it again. But you overcame that, and we don't hear a lot about it in our community. I think people starting as an adult. That's why I asked how that went for you.
Yeah.
Now, did you do it?
Go ahead. Yeah.
All
I was going to say, and it is scary.
And it can be like, some people are like, you're never scared in a mountain. I'm like, well, yeah, sometimes I'm still scared, but 90% of the time I'm not. But I've been doing it since I was 12. That's a little different than someone who started at 31. It's a whole new world. When you're short and small like a child, you have low center of gravity. You have no fear. So it's a whole other. Oh, the kids are amazing. I love to watch them. Just zipping by. Like, all right, have a blast, guys. Whatever. I'll be over here now. And like I said, older folks just don't do it. Adults just don't do it. So I love hearing that you got into it. Now, did you do it my friend showed me, or did you buy the lessons? I always say buy the lessons.
I did a little bit of both. I got a lesson straight off the bat, for sure, because just to get the basics of like, this is how you put your boot in, and this is how you stand up. And I think I was really fortunate that those friends definitely spent a lot of time with me on the flats, teaching me like the basics. And I'm really thankful for that, because it would have been hours and hours and hundreds of dollars on lessons otherwise.
Totally.
I think in a way, part of what probably helped me is that I probably have a death wish. I'm an adrenaline junkie. So, pushing myself down the mountain was, still scary as hell. But because it was new and it was exciting, I think I was more willing than, say, if I was going to try it even now. And then I also had the added benefit of my friends being complete a-holes and dragging me down a blue run when I could really only do a green, or pushing me down a black run when I could really only do a blue, because they just wouldn't tell me. I was new to the mountain. I didn't know the runs. Like, oh, we're just going to go on this run. What is it? Oh, it's just the blue. It's fine. And then I get to the bottom and like, yeah, that was a pretty steep black. And I'm like, what? But it is scary. And even now it's scary. Like, I've had a pretty mellow season. I haven't gotten onto the snow that much. For what you were saying about you go for an hour drive, it takes us a minimum of 3 hours to get to the closest resort from Melbourne.
Totally.
And, I've been introducing some new people, new friends to snow. So I haven't really done that much, aggressive riding or anything like that. And even I think it was the last day I was up a few weeks ago, I got to the top of a few black runs because I was like, right, it's Maria time. I went off by myself. And I always had to remind myself, I'm like, you know how to do these. Come on, just go, and, had to remind myself that I could do it. And, there was still that anxiety. And I think if anyone tells you that they're 100% fearless, even if they've been doing it for 20 years, they're full of it, I have this running joke with my friends and anyone I meet who's anxious about it. I said, look, if you haven't gotten to the top of a run, broken down and had to cry before you then did the run at least once a season, you're just not doing it right. You're not pushing yourself. You're not like, you're not giving, you know, and it's kind of like, I actually went to a women's networking night up at Mount Buller the other night, and we had a bit of a Q&A panel, which was really cool. And a girl asked, you know, what do you do about the anxiety? What do you do? And I said, you know, you've seen that viral video of the little kid in the dinosaur costume who's just constantly chatting away to herself as she's snowboarding, maybe?
Yes.
It's like, and she's like, oh, I'm a Stachosaurus. And, you know, she's constantly chattering away to herself. And I kind of said to this chick, I said, you know, that's me at 37. When I am on a run, when I'm sitting on the chairlift, it is constantly like, Maria, you've got this, Maria. Just don't stop. Come, Maria, use your heel edge. Come, Maria, just go. Yeah, don't stop. Come on. Go. Like, you know, there's this constant pep talk going. And I think a lot of people have that. I think some just don't like to admit it for, you know, they're proud or whatever. But I think everyone's still got the anxiety, and it comes back down to, I think, who you've got around you and who you've got supporting you in the snow, and who's going to push you, but in a good way, and who's going to have your back, and knowing if something does go wrong that they're going to pull you out, like, you know, sometimes quite literally. So
totally. Yeah. Excellent. No, I'm happy to hear it. I'm happy to hear that you do it. I'm happy to hear that you enjoy it. And since you do it, since you just mentioned Mount Buller, we're going to exploit the fact that you're Australian, because I have never had an Australian here, though I have worked with Australian and New Zealand folks back in the 90s when I worked at a ski mountain through high school. You know, they come up for our winter, you know, and they work there for the season and then they go home. You know, it's a cool life. When I suggest it to young people all the time, like, get into hospitality. Yeah, it's a job that could suck, but you could go around the world if you wanted to. Everywhere, and it's a party. Like, that's what it is. You work to cover your rent and your beer, and that's what you do. You know, and then it's just dudes, chicks, parties, whatever you want, you know, drugs if you're into it, you know, whatever it is. And they're like, that's not serious. I was like, I might be exaggerating a little, but go try it. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But I never asked the questions. And now, again, that was the 90s. This is 2023. It's a whole other world. So you mentioned Mount Buller. Is that your home mountain or not?
It definitely was when I started, because it's like the closest, well, it's technically not the closest to Melbourne, but it's the closest, biggest resort to Melbourne. At 3 hours, 15 drive each way. So definitely for the first few years when I was learning, that's where I went. And so then there's the other two bigger ones in Victoria, the state of Victoria, which is Falls Creek and Mount Hotham. So they're the other two big ones, and they're sort of the ones I probably frequent the most at the moment, because I usually tend to get an Epic Pass because it covers more of the resorts in Australia. There's 3 resorts it covers, rather than just buying one resort pass for one mountain for the season. Then we've got over into New South Wales, so there's Perisher, which is also on the Epic Pass, and Thredbo, which is on the Icon Pass. And they're the 2 big ones there. And then there's a couple of smaller ones like Charlotte's Pass and Selwyn Snowfields. So they're the sort of, and there's Mount Baw in Melbourne as well. I shouldn't leave them out because they might come after me. But yeah, that's the roundup of resorts in Australia. Really, Excellent. It's just across 2 straits. It's all the one sort of alpine region. It just happens to sort of straddle the border of these 2 states.
Excellent. And again, you know, we've heard of these places. I've never been. Obviously, I've never been off North America, so I haven't been. And to get me in an aircraft to get down there, that's going to be some doing. I might have to start drinking again for that, and I don't do that anymore. But, you know, it's interesting. Now, again, like I made a joke earlier. It's not really a joke. I'm not a big fan of mainstream media, so I don't know exactly how your winter went. It looked like some places were having a very good winter. Some places were having a very bad winter, which makes sense. You know, that's just what you get. You get that across, you know, country, these vast stretches of land. Some people, you know, our winter wasn't so great this year. California got hammered. This year it might be the reverse. So how was your winter is what I'm getting at, the long way around.
Look, it definitely wasn't the best. I think they actually came out, the like meteorology group here said it's actually been our warmest winter since 1910. So since recording of weather started in Australia, it's our warmest winter. But look, that being said, you're bang on. The media just blew it way out of proportion because what was happening at a lot of the resorts is, the stuff at the bottom where, you get on the lift to go up, or, where the base camp, restaurants or communal areas were, they were dying fast because A, it's flat, B, everyone's walking all over them, and C, the groomers aren't pushing snow there. It doesn't need to be there. You don't need to walk over snow just to get into the main building to get up onto the lift.
Sure.
So, people were, and, we get a lot of people that visit just to see the snow, just to toboggan with their kids. They're not there to do full-on ski and snowboarding trips. And, they take pictures and post them, and it really was like fear-mongering. It sucked because, Australia is a huge country, and we have people that come from the top parts of New Zealand, oh my goodness, Queensland. I had Queenstown in my head, and then I went to New Zealand. Top parts of Queensland and Perth, which are both, 4 or 5 hour flights away sort of thing. And they don't want to come if it's going to be horrible. They are better at putting their money to go to Japan where they're guaranteed, Japow. But, the snow was still great. I think one of the biggest things people forget is how much work goes into maintaining those runs and what the groomers are doing overnight. And when they're like physically carting around trucks of snow from stores off of one side of one sheltered side of the mountain back onto the runs, so that when it hasn't snowed for a month, we're still able to do our runs. Like, it was still good snow. It was still good skiing. And if you were up there and you were doing it, at a point in the winter, the whole mountain was open at every resort. So you still got to use it. And it was a bit short. It was a bit crowded because, as it starts to die off, seeing people getting funneled into less runs. But I still always think that, for a country like ours that is so inherently hot and dry, the fact that we get some snow is great. It really wasn't as horrible as it was made out to be. Like, it's not been a great season. We've had much better where we will get 2-3 meter bases, but it was still doable. It was still, if you were out there, you could still get 30 days on the snow if you were, going up. And it was very, very much fear-mongered on social media and in the news. And I think there was a few articles that went out on Daily Mail and stuff like that going look at the mud. But the plus side of, the flip side of it was these resorts were doing the best they could. So when the bottom 50 or 100 meters of the run had, bottomed out and there wasn't enough snow, they were getting out those grass mats and putting stuff down so people could still enjoy the 97% of the run that was amazing still, and making it work for those people so they could still do it rather than just shutting the whole thing off. So, I think a lot of people were complaining, but I think everyone should really be really thankful that we still got what we got. And it was okay. If you're there for a genuine love of it, it was still amazing.
Awesome. And that's what you like to see. And again, I did see some of that social media stuff that said, Australia is just closing tomorrow. And I'm like, but I was just on Threadbow's Instagram and they just said they got, 20 centimeters in a night or something, some ridiculous number. I was like, and again, the geography escapes me, but I don't have the memory I used to have. So, but I have enough of it. I do know that Perth is where you get that crazy flight to New Jersey. That's 22 hours. Yeah. God bless you. God bless the people who work on that flight. God bless the people who are taking it, whatever. And I know that's on the other side of the continent. That's over there, that's in the West, and you're more in the East. So I know that. But again, the point was, how are you saying this, but they're saying that, plus their snow guns are on. So the temps and the humidity and the weather has to work with that as well. So what are you telling me and why? And that's why we're taking taking advantage of an Australian, like one of your Olympians, Belle Brokoff. She follows Ski Rex Media, but I've never talked to the woman. And now she's just yeah. I thank you. I appreciate that, and she's awesome. I love watching her stuff, even not her snowboarding stuff. She's got a good sense of humor, that one, and but. I like the competitive world anyway, and she rides border cross, if I remember correctly. Again, my memory's not what it used to be, but a lot of fun. But now we're talking to someone actually talking. Now, something else I had an interest in is, you talked about having an Epic Pass. We know Epic Pass. You talk about Icon Pass. We know Icon Pass. I talk about the Indy Pass all the time, but that's not down there. That goes only into Japan and Canada and US. What's it like? Exchange rates notwithstanding, what's it like for cost down there? Because I know Europeans who brag about it. Like, our lift tickets are nothing, where you guys have some mountains that are going to be $300 a day soon. 300 US, do the math. I don't know what it is. Listeners, pick your country, go on Google, figure it out. I don't know. I can't do all of you. But I think the US dollar and the Australian dollar are close right now, like 1 to 150, whatever it is. I forget. Maybe 2.
About that.
I forget. I did just look it up, and now I've completely blanked it. But the point is it pricey there? Is it more mid-range? Have you all seen the steady increase over the last 5-10 years like we have?
Yeah, it definitely is getting to that point where I feel like it's almost going to become an elitist sport again.
Yes.
I think I started in 2017, and look, even then it was still a lot. If you didn't buy, say, a season pass or something, just coming up for a weekend, by the time you put together, lift passes for a weekend for 2 people and accommodation and food and fuel, and, you're burning through $1,000, so,
totally.
$750 US sort of thing, or something around there. And now, like, the whole reason I think the Epic and Icon kicked in so much here is because you pay your $1,000 Australian to get that season pass, because a day pass is like $200. So, and if you've got a family of 4, all of a sudden, that's a lot of coin.
Totally.
But yeah, it has. And, you talk about the fact that a lot of Australians travel so much to go to the snow overseas, and it's because of the cost. It's, like, funny story. I went and did a week in Japan at the beginning of this year. And even though I had my Epic Pass, which enabled me like 5 days of free riding at Hakuba, it was still cheaper for me to go to a different resort and get the accommodation, because Hakuba is becoming such a bit of a, Aussie hotspot, that the pricing of accommodation and food is so jacked up.
Sure.
But, so for me to even just go and pay only accommodation was still more expensive than me to go to another resort in Japan and pay a lift ticket and accommodation.
Sure.
And that's the influence of that Epic Pass and Icon Pass here. But yeah, it's definitely creeping up. And I feel like Australia, and like, look, I've been to Sunshine Village and Lake Louise in Canada. I've been to a couple of resorts around Japan and New Zealand, and obviously all my time in Australia. And I feel like Australia is really, because the snow is not a big part of our life, we really hype that tourist side of it up, and therefore things are really expensive. I was blown away the first time I went to New Zealand, and, got over there, and the resort is literally only one building at the bottom of the mountain, where there's a few, like, school style cafeteria, outlets, and a big communal room, and that's it. Whereas in Australia, it's like restaurants and fancy apartments and, like, day spas and massage places. And it's a real, like, sort of like Club Med almost type experience.
Sure.
And I probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but the
fine,
difference
dude.
between the two is really crazy. And so, yeah, it is starting to get so much cheaper to go to New Zealand for a week and ski over there, or go to Japan for a week, even including the flights and the comm. It is a really expensive sport here, and especially because we have to put so much time and effort into getting there in the first place. Like, if you're in Sydney and you're going to Perisher, it's a 6-hour drive. So you're talking a tank of fuel and a bit maybe each way, plus your 12, 13 hours of driving just for a weekend.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot.
You stack that on top of all your accommodation, and yeah, it's getting crazy. And I feel like it is getting back up to that almost like elitist level. Like, even this year I'm like, cool, sharing houses with mates and, you know, sleeping on a sofa bed if I need to, because, you know, and we can't stay on the mountain because it's way too expensive. So yeah.
See, that's interesting to me for a lot of reasons. Again, like now I have been, something I try to kill is the elitist skier stereotype. Like they're out there. Sure. We have some incredibly high end places here, but the majority of the sport is not that. I'm not rich and I don't claim to be, and I don't go to big places. Like my home mountain is 15 minutes from my front door, right on the other side of the river here. Oh, it's awesome. It's this little place and it only has, you know, 600 vertical, you know, not a lot of trails, but it's never packed. The season's past 200 US, 250 US, I think this year. You know, a day ticket's $40 on a weekday. You know, it's relatively not bad. And I was curious because we do hear from Europeans that they have, but then it's a whole other sport in Europe and it's different and that's cool. You know, but it's just interesting to me. Plus, you know, I always say, get the season's pass. I tell everybody the cheapest way you're ever going to ski is buy a season pass. And that's the cheapest way to do anything. Museums, music venues, aquatic centers, whatever, you know, what have you, indoor places. I know there's indoor places coming to Australia. I just don't remember where. When that opens,
I think there's one in Perth, I think, from memory, and one in Canberra. So
if you get the chance, try it. A lot of people make fun of it. A lot of people hate on it. I think it's fun and I think it's cool because it's just different. And it's just kind of ridiculous because you're just in a giant sloped freezer with snow. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And it's kind of awesome because of it.
Super funny. So growing up in Adelaide in South Australia, we actually used to have this indoor snow place called Mount Beverton. And it was literally like a couple of ice rinks and one slope with a conveyor belt up. So it wasn't even that tall. But so many, and I used to only go there to do some tobogganing because that was the fun thing to do. But I never realized until I met people at the snow who also came from Adelaide that you could actually take a pair of skis there and just do this one slope. And I reckon it would take you less than 10 seconds to get down it. That's how tiny it was.
That's
but
awesome.
It's what we had. So to see something massive, like I've seen some of the ones in like the Netherlands and stuff like that, are these huge indoor centers. I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited for that.
It is very cool. I like it. I love it. I can't say enough about it. And another thing that I wanted to bring up with cost is the interest in it is that in Australia and New Zealand, say, I don't feel like the price should be so high. Again, you don't have the air travel to just land there. And that's a thing here too. Like you can't land at every mountain, obviously. And then some of the ones that you can, you have to know how to fly yourself. Small airports. But you have far less in two countries. And I think there was one, actually, I think it just sold in Tasmania as well. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Ben Lemond. Sorry, Tasmania. I forgot all about that one.
There you go. And a couple of years ago, I think it sold. And but you still have in those three countries a handful total where, like I said, just here in New England, I have, 10 or 12 but just within an hour. And if I push out to that 3 hours, there's like 100. And if I push out to the 6 hours, like you were saying, to drive, it's like I now have 1,000 at my disposal from every single pass of every single size, every single amenity you could ever want. From like right across the river, I have another place that I could go that just has a surface lift. That's all it is. It's got a little button lift and that's all it has. It's got like five trails and that's great. And that's good enough for me too. Like I'm not one of these people that pushes, it's gotta be Aspen or nothing, or pick your high end or down there, Perisher or nothing. Cause I'm pretty sure, isn't Perisher like the flagship down there? I don't know if that's right.
Perisher's like the biggest, but if you're going to compare, Aspen's that'd be Threadbow, a bit more upper class, a bit more like, highest points and
Yeah, so pick that. Like, I don't need amenities. Like you said, the place in New Zealand where there's no restaurants. They might have a cafeteria, maybe. They might have, at least their rental shop, but that's all I care about. And I don't need rentals. I have my own stuff. So I'm good. I bring a sandwich, peanut butter sandwich. I don't need none of it. Just let me go.
Yep.
That, not that I'm knocking that. Some of that stuff is great,
Look, and like, I like this year, a few of my friends and I, we definitely splurged for one weekend. We got,
Nice.
a little apartment on the mountain at Mount Hotham, and that was our splurge weekend, but we just did it
Sure.
once, but we still actually brought up our food and made sandwiches for lunch and went back to the apartment and stuff because eating food on the mountain is expensive, paying $30 for a burger. And it's like, what? When I can eat.
No,
I'm a salami and cheese girl myself. So,
very nice. Love it. Ate that the other day.
But yeah, it's funny. And there is nothing wrong. Like you said, there is no right or wrong way of doing it. If you can afford it, the luxury, and you can make it amazing, and you do, 100 meters from a ski lift, then go for it. But unfortunately, it's not everyone's cup of tea. And then It's funny because you're saying you've got all these resorts. And the other thing we have, which I didn't mention, is most of our resorts are on national parks. So we actually have to pay just to get into the resort, with our car. So before we even get on the chairlift, we have to pay around $60 a day just to drive through the gate and park our car.
See, we do have that in some places, far less though. It's not very common. The only one I can think of offhand, and I know there's more, but Lee Canyon out there in Nevada, it's an hour north of Las Vegas, 45 minutes to an hour. Beautiful drive, awesome place, but you do have it's on I don't think it's national there though. I think it's I can't remember. Goodness gracious, I lived in the friggin' city. Holy crap. Las Vegas is great too. Anybody, that's a ski town. I don't care. You can get so many places and you can gamble.
But you're blowing my mind because as an Australian, I go Las Vegas and I'm like, earthquake. I go Las Vegas and I'm like, cool, desert strip Elvis, where's the snow?
So the beautiful thing about it is it's not right. Well, Lee Canyon is about, like I said, 45 minutes to an hour. It's a small place. It only has 800-foot vert, but its base is at 8,000 foot. So do the math. It's
Whoa.
So many,
wow.
3,000 meters, something like that. I can't remember what the actual math is, 2,000. And so it starts up there and it's awesome. I can't even get to the top of it. It's just too high for me. I've hiked to the top and it's just it's too much. It's awesome. Then you go to places in Utah, places in New Mexico, places in Arizona, and then it's about 3-4 hours drive. But again, that's what you got to do unless you live where I live or you live in a place in Colorado. You're going to have to drive anyway. So you might as well have a jump off point. That's the city of Las Vegas, which the desert is also. The desert's also beautiful. The desert mountains, big mountains, gorgeous. A lot of cool animals if you're into that. I see videos coming out from your neck of the woods of echidnas and things walking around snow slopes. And I'm like, wombats and things. You don't see that here, obviously, but I would love to see that. That's so great. So, it's all different. And, like I was saying, I was just curious because, we have we have about somewhere between 300 or 400 mountains. So you would think it would be cheap in the US because there's so much competition, and yet it isn't. But I will say, if I had the cash, we have a private resort here, a country club style. And if I had it, I would join in a second because I love the mountain anyway. I was there a long time ago before it ever went private when it was still public, and love it. And I was like, and I told the guys while I was down there, they let me come ski it. I was like, if I could cut you the check right now, 100%. Anybody who talks about the rich skier stereotype, I'm trying to kill it too, but that was awesome. So whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's awesome. We now have a little insight into Australia, what it's like. I would love to try it just because I would love to try it. Clearly not this season because the season's over, but our season's about to begin. So before I let you go, continue on with your morning. It is 7:00 p.m. where I am. It's about 9:00 p.m. a.m.
Correct. Yep.
Tomorrow, mind you.
Yes.
That's right. She's talking to us from the future. Yes.
That's right. See, just make sure you turn your fridge off tonight. That's all I'm going to say.
You heard it, guys. She knows. She knows. She knows things. See, and that's the thing. I want to travel down there, but it seems so tough. Now, you've done it as a skier, snowboarder. Now, you said that wasn't your goal when you went to Canada. You were in the Canadian Rockies. So did you rent when you were there?
Yeah. Because I knew I was going to be going, we'd planned this trip across Canada, and then I kind of said, hey, let's add in a stock. So I took my own boots and clothing because at that point I didn't have my own brand and I was still struggling to find stuff. and I was very scared of trying to find something in a rental. So I took my own boots and clothing and I rented boards over there, which was amazing, just to try some different stuff. And
Totally. See, now that was the question, because I know when I lived in Las Vegas, since I brought it up, very large Polynesian population. I worked with a guy. Yeah, it's oddly enough, someone said to me, and I looked at him cross-eyed. He's like, yeah, they call this, the Hawaiians call it the fifth island or something. I was like, what are you talking about, dude? Now, here's the funny part about that story is that here I am. I moved to Las Vegas from the East Coast. I was living in New Jersey. I was the uptight East Coaster. That's our culture. Their culture is the more California laid back West Coast style. So I'm looking at this guy like I'm on a street. I'm like, dude, what the are you talking about? Like, that actually kind of sounds like prejudice to me. Like, what do you mean? Sure enough, I start talking to people like, no, there really is a large Polynesian population here. I was like, oh,
that's
well,
cool.
all right, that makes more sense. But one of the guys I worked with, he had to go home on family business, and he was telling me about the flight. Now, and this had nothing to do with snow sports. I'm like, so you're telling me you're going to go on a plane so long, you're going to go back in time. You have to do it 3 or 4 different planes in the 24. I was like, dude, it's too much. Now, because what he said, it was going to take him days just to get there, which I get it. 21st century back, 200 years ago, it took months. Cool. Understand. Love technology.
We're progressing.
But I try to picture that carrying my gear. And that's why I was wondering if you rented or you carried. And I was going to say, what was that like, having to pack up your gear? I know what it's like to pack it up in my car to go around my area. I know what it's like to pack it up to have to fly across the country. What would it be like to do it around the world? But you didn't have to do that, thankfully, I would assume.
But I have.
Oh, but you have. True.
Yeah.
You said Japan
the only reason I didn't do it for that trip is because, out of the 4 weeks that we're traveling, only about a week or so total was for the snow. So I didn't want to have to carry boards and skis across, from the west to the east coast of Canada. But the times I have gone to Japan for just the snow and have gone to New Zealand, I take everything with me, because there's nothing like your own gear. Like, there's nothing like your own board. So, and you still might rent a board for a day just to try something new. But yeah, you do. And, the biggest thing is, like, thank goodness for bags with wheels. Yeah. So, and actually the really cool thing about traveling in Japan is they have this fantastic, I don't even know what to call it. It's called Black Cat. That's the nickname for it, because the actual company is called like Yamato or something like that. But the logo is a black cat. So everyone just calls it Black Cat. And you can pay about $20 Australian. So like what, $15, $12 US. And they will take your bag with your snowboard and all your gear from the airport. You don't even have to leave the airport to the resort for you, which might be 3-4 hours away. So you don't even have to bother. And you just rock up the next day to the resort and it will be there.
That's awesome.
So it means if you want to go do some sightseeing. So that's really cool for traveling with your gear in Japan. And then, everywhere else is just, take your big old board bag, chuck it into oversized, luggage area, and pray to God that it's not damaged on the way over, which I've had happen once. I have, but
that's a bummer.
But look, I got a new board out of it, so
all right. Hey, positivity. We're all about positivity here.
Exactly. So usually when Australians do travel to Japan or New Zealand or even the US, they will take all their gear with them, 100%.
Fair enough. Well, I hope it's not.
You get fit.
I hope it's not as difficult as it feels, because it would feel like, because if I went to Australia, you're darn right. If I'm going that far, I'm packing everything. Yeah. Sometimes I have to wonder about the professionals, but they have people that take care of their logistics, and those people should be commended, carrying that much gear while, these people are celebrities in our world,
Exactly.
They're smiling and having a good time. And there's these poor suckers with skis and bags and stuff on their backs. Awesome. All right. Well, again,
wheels.
Bag with wheels, 100%. Or ride your ski boards, kids. Mine are only 110 centimeters. So right up under your arm. and they're a lot of fun. I have full-size skis too, but those are a lot of fun. All right, cool. So since her morning's going on for tomorrow, my evening is coming to a close. Let's start to wrap it up. Nobody's Princess. That's what we were talking about before. And let's shout out the links. nobodiesprincess.com.au, right?
Correct. Also just the .com for anyone that doesn't want to type in the extra 3 characters.
Oh, okay. Cool. Very nice. So even just .com for us here, that'll work. Cause I think the US is one of the only countries that doesn't have the second dot.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I understand a little technology, but I don't understand that. And social media, do we do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And I might have followed you on social media. I don't know, but go ahead and shout it out.
Yeah. So on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Nice.
That's interesting. Nobody's Princess Apparel, because Nobody's Princess was already taken.
Sure.
So yeah, definitely on all the socials, all the websites, Google, and it will come up.
Cool. Yeah, and that's what I had to do for the website, because I didn't save it in my bookmarks, and I don't know why that didn't work. Again, technology, wonderful thing. Awesome. Thank you, Maria. That was great. nobodiesprincess.com and .com.au, so you can buy some gear, and a lot of fun talking about Australia from someone who's there. We actually did the same thing with one of our friends from England, and it was right at the time that the Queen died, so we got ground level. We did a whole extra thing that had nothing to do with snow sports. And I was like, dude, what is that like? Because that woman has been queen since my grandparents were around. Like, what was that like? Is it, because here you heard all the negatives, all the social media stuff where people were like, oh, the queen is a racist and slavery and it's all this stuff. It's like, dude, the woman is dead. Leave her alone. So that was awesome having you down there at ground level to tell us what it was like. And it was a lot of fun. We're going to have to do this again. Maybe we'll get into the preseason when it comes back around or something. Yeah. Or if you get big enough and you end up at one of our expos, I'll see you there, because I'm going to Boston. So that's what I do. And, there's outdoor retailer out there in Colorado, and there's the other expo that's out in like Utah or something. I don't even know. There's so much going on this time of year. Their year is closing out, but ours is just getting busy. Thank you, Maria. I really do appreciate that. This was awesome.
No, it was an absolute ball being here. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And like I said, we'll do it again sometime. You have a good morning, and we'll talk to you again soon, man.
See ya.
And there she goes, Maria Baker from Australia, from Nobody's Princess, out there making the gear that will fit you, ladies. Check that one out if you have the time. The website is in the show notes. It is in the description, and please do not check those notes if you are driving. As I always say, wait till you pull over. Wait till you get out of the car. You don't want that ticket or worse. I, of course, am Tim from Ski Rex Media. Thank you for listening. I told you that was a fun one, and I'm sure you had some fun with it. Tune in every week. Ski Rex Media podcast every Wednesday or Sundays, early access with no ads on Patreon. You can check that out if you would like. Patreon.com/Ski Rex Media. Again, check out Whaleback Mountain. Awesome place. It's going to be great, especially have an Indie Pass, full Indie partner this year. Check out the Snowbound Expo in a couple weeks. Get those discounted tickets. Ski Rex Media is the code. And I will see you out there this season. It's looking to be a good one. I'm sure it's going to be. I'm excited. We're all talking about what we're riding for passes and where we're going to be, and it's going to be great. Have a good one, everybody, and I will see you out there later.